Alright, I went ahead and put on my rulers. I made a little holding device that holds a little 6-inch scale in place, and currently it's resting on the frame right here, and I'm looking at the number here in the little window, and it's just touching the number 8. I'm going to go over here, and again the scale is flat on the frame, and if you look in the little window right there, it's just touching the bottom of the 8 right there. So I know pretty well for sure that the gantry is indeed parallel with the frame. Knowing that the shuttle, the part that actually moves back and forth, is also most likely parallel with the frame, then all I have to deal with is the 4 adjustment knobs on each corner, one on each corner, and set the level of the bed with the nozzle, because the nozzle is riding on the gantry rail, and we know again due to the measurement that this gantry is completely parallel and level with the frame itself, which again translates to being level with the shuttle here on the bottom. So now my only adjustment now is to make sure that the nozzle tip is the proper distance from the glass. And the way I do that is by hand using the paper method. As I mentioned earlier in the video, that before you start doing the paper calibration and distance from the glass to the nozzle, be absolutely sure that there's no dried, hardened filament on the tip. And as you can see right here, there's quite a bit in comparison to the thickness of a piece of paper on the end of my nozzle. So basically I'll make sure that that is completely clear of any dried filament, so that when the paper is being used, it's touching the brass of the nozzle and the glass, and not being disrupted or interrupted by this little piece of filament located right here. Alright, so I briefly heated the nozzle to just above about 185, and then I cleaned all the filament off of the tip and all the way around the nozzle itself. So currently the nozzle is cool, it's cooling down, so no more filament will actually ooze out of the nozzle, keeping it completely clear, so that when the paper rubs right on the tip and the glass, then it runs smoothly through the calibration process. Alright, so after cleaning the nozzle and making sure everything is clear, I went ahead and auto-homed again, which brought the table back. It brought the print head far to the left up against its little micro switch, as well as the gantry down to the little micro switch here, which is for the Z-axis drive. This is the CR10S, so I have 2 stepper motors right here and one on the other side, and I know that after measuring across the gantry that they are calibrated and equal, making the gantry completely level and parallel with the frame. And as mentioned before, the shuttle here is also parallel with the frame. So the only thing I have to adjust now is the aluminum plate and the mirror that's being held up by the 4 springs and adjusted by the 4 screws in this knob. So I'm going to quickly move this knob course-wise and get the plate as close to the glass as possible, but not touching, because I'm going to do the final dial in with the paper. Alright, so as a course adjustment, I went ahead and moved the print head and the table by hand from corner to corner, and I checked the distance using 2 pieces of regular typing paper. So this essentially is a course adjustment, so that when I reach the paper here on the print head nozzle and the glass, then I know that I'm very close to dialing it in properly. You can also press down a bit on the glass to maybe slide the paper in and out and get a general feel of how close it is. Because it is on springs and the threads are not, the screws are not threaded into the shuttle, then it's easy enough to press it down and adjust and turn the knobs here. So right now I can feel a little bit of tension on the paper and the nozzle, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten it up just a scooch, and you can see it runs pretty clear now. So basically all four corners are as close as the thickness of 2 pieces of typing paper. So I'm going to go ahead and dial it in for the complete finished leveling, and we'll check it again. Alright, now with a single piece of paper, it moves completely free of the nozzle and the glass, and I'm going to check that on all four corners. Okay, you can see it's very free, it's not binding at all. And again, doing this by hand, and once you get it down to a science, as they say, then it's fairly easy and simple to do. And currently right now I'm feeling a little resistance right here, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this knob so that it actually pulls the table down a bit. There we go, now it's fairly free. And I'm going to go now to the other corner here and do the same thing. So you do this a couple of times, and to be absolutely sure you're dialing it in. Right now, again, I can feel that it's not going under, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the knob just a scotch like that, slide it under, try it again. Okay, right now it's sliding pretty good. So I'm going to do this procedure on all four corners until it's perfectly dialed in, and we'll go from there. Now another thing to be aware of, that when you make major changes on any of the corners, it will affect the setting on the other 3 corners. So as you dial it in, you're only going to make small, tiny adjustments so that it affects the other 3 corners less and doesn't throw off the calibration. So as you get it closer, you got to go back around to be sure that what you set on this corner and that corner are going to be accurate. So by changing the corners, you will affect the other 3. Alright, as you get closer and closer to dialing it in on the 4 corners, when you go to slide the paper under the nozzle, if it feels like it's binding right there, then just slightly press down on the table and get the feel for what the distance is. You can actually press down just enough so the paper actually slides under. Okay, so again, you just press down just enough so the paper slides under, and then when you give it a pull, you can feel that it's got a little bit of a bind to it. So I think that that is really close to being 0 or being calibrated to the thickness of a piece of paper on the glass, on a bare piece of glass. Since I actually print on tape, I'm going to go ahead and redo the calibration with blue tape located here, roughly in the center, because of course the thickness of the blue tape will throw off this calibration that I just did. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the blue tape on the mirror here, on the glass, in the location that I'm going to run my print. And I don't need to cover the entire glass corner to corner with the blue tape, only the area that I plan to actually do the print, and again recalibrate using the paper.